has jumped on. Right now, I got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the walls. The chair is against the walls. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.
Welcome everybody to the Daily Gun Show, and I'm not feeling real good, so I've been debating if I was going to go live tonight. I don't know if my audio is working, so let me know. I'm not going to be talking a lot, but I've been listening to episode 532 of the Plate Society podcast, and they had been talking to Rhonda Ezell, and I, for some reason, didn't have Rhonda in the Minuteman University yet. So I'm going to work on that and listen to the rest of their podcast. And I'm not going to talk. It feels like I'm walking through pudding right now. So I'm not sick, but I'm not feeling great. So I'm just going to hit this one.
That's what they're afraid of, is that it'll actually get to the Supremes and overturn and really destroy a lot of gun regulation that's coming up. John?
John, you mute.
John says one correction: Virginia governors cannot run for re-election.
Yeah. Sorry, I was on mute, so I didn't call anybody's ear. Yeah, that's the good news. I mean, Northam, he's a lame duck.
Do you know John a second
Like,
term?
No,
They only get one term.
one and done.
Oh,
One done. Beautiful.
don't they get? But if I remember, it's one that I thought it was Virginia. Isn't they? Aren't they an off year?
Yes.
They elect in the third year after. It's either the first or the third year after the presidential election, right?
So it's not during a presidential or a midterm, is what you're saying.
It's always an odd year, just like New Jersey.
Okay. All right. Well, now, Monty, if you want to, you can take off on that
No,
next story.
wait. I'm
What?
still
I
waiting.
was going to say, Rob has a
Oh,
comment.
my apologies.
During that debate, when Virginia citizens were forced from the room to ram through that vote, there was a Virginia congressman who came to testify, and he absolutely said what John is saying. He goes, you guys have the votes to do this. You can. But the egregious violations that you passed today may well be in front of the Supreme Court in a real hurry. And he, as he says, and I look forward to that, because that may let people carry ARs on their back across the country, given the laws that you've passed or proposed to pass here today. So I thought that was a brilliant way to push back.
Oh yeah, I agree. I'm wondering myself when we're going to get to, because there are a lot of states, California, Colorado, that have magazine restrictions as far as the number of rounds. I'm waiting for that to get to the Supreme Court. Right now we're still at a 5-4, but if Sonia Sotomayor, who is a brittle diabetic, were to retire, or if Ruth Bader Ginsburg were to retire, it could quickly become a 6-4, and then Katie bar the door for pro-rights lawsuits to get up there.
Well, it's a fragile 5-4. I don't think it's a strong 5-4. So far, it's been okay, but it's
Yeah.
it's,
All right, are we? Let me check now. Are we done with this one?
Thank you.
All right, Monty, let's go ahead and talk about the racist roots of gun control.
Thank you, Paul. What do the Brady Bunch, Mommy's Waiting Action, Illegal Mayor Against Guns, and the Ku Klux Klan have in common? They're all gun control organizations. David Hogg, otherwise known as Piglet, is the gift that keeps giving. A week or so ago, he tweeted, "This is a tweet for the founders of gun violence prevention movement started centuries ago by almost entirely black, brown, and indigenous LGBTQ women and non-binary people that never got on the news or in history books. We may not know all of your names, but thank you. We see the beginning of gun control in 1619 when the Virginia provincial legislature passed its first gun control laws. It was a race-based total gun ban. Quote, that all such free mulattoes, Negroes, and Indians shall appear without arms. In 1640, Virginia reaffirmed the earlier law to include clubs. In 1712, Virginia passed the act preventing Negroes insurrection, and South Carolina also got into the act. The United States itself has not been innocent. Following the ratification of the Second Amendment, they passed the Uniform Militia Act of 1792, which excluded blacks from the militia. Throughout the antebellum years, slave states continued to pass race-based gun laws. The U.S. Supreme Court held that slavery and blacks as not being citizens. In Dred Scott versus Sanford, Chief Justice argued that if blacks were citizens, then all rights included in the Constitution would apply to them. Then we fought a civil war which cost nearly 750,000 American lives. That was nearly 2% of the male population, to end slavery. The 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments ensured that all blacks were free citizens. The 14th Amendment required gun control laws to be racially neutral, so Tennessee and Arkansas prohibited owning handguns freed slaves could afford by only allowing Army and Navy handguns, which were more expensive. After Lee surrendered to Grant at Appomattox Courthouse, many of the CSA officers were allowed to retain their sidearm. South Carolina outlawed concealed carry, while blacks who violated the law ended up on a chain gang. Whites who violated the law were only fined. Many states outlawed inexpensive firearms, former slaves, the types former slaves could afford. By the 20th century, the laws denying guns to non-whites moved north to Ohio and Illinois. Justice Clarence Thomas's opinion in McDonald versus Chicago explicitly pointed to gun control as race control. That people like Piglet and other gun control groups will point to those laws as pioneers in the, quote, gun violence prevention movement, end quote. I guess they didn't teach history at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School or at Harvard University. As David Koppel and Joseph Greenlee put at the end of the 2017 article on the Hill website, self-defense is an inherent human right. The 14th Amendment is America's promise that no law-abiding person will be deprived of that right, regardless of color. Recently, a bill was introduced in Illinois which would require firearms ownership identification card holders to carry $1 million of liability insurance in order to get their FOID cards. Not every FOID card holder is a gun owner. Who would this mostly affect? It would mostly affect low-income gun owners who tend to live in high-crime areas. A majority of those citizens tend to be minorities. Yet another attempt at a racist gun control measure.
All right, Rob, you're first up in show notes, man.
Yeah, the anti-rights bigots rewrite history to suit their propaganda.
Always.
And too many of the mainstream media cover for them. Our modern heroes, Rhonda Izell, Ken Blanchard, Rick Ector, they put their heart and mind on the line every day. They tell the truth.
Maj, Katie,
Go listen to
Tony,
them.
Argo,
And this is so
Devin.
Ken Blanchard and the VCDL have a great short video. It just came out last week. It's titled The Racist Roots of Gun Control. It's a minute long to the second. It's on YouTube and it's on my Facebook page. Go watch it. It'll move you. If it doesn't move you to stand up and cheer, it might move you to tears. Paul, what do you think?
I want to go back to the tweet that David Hogg put out. I'm going to move my show notes over to another screen here so I can read it directly. his tweet. This is a tweet for the founders of gun violence prevention movement, started centuries ago by almost entirely black, brown, and indigenous LGBTQ women and non-binary people that never got on the news or in most history books. Centuries, that would mean 2 centuries ago, which would mean it would be in 1820, about 50 years after, almost 50 years after the country was founded. LGBTQ at that point, those of you who listen to the show know that I'll fight for their rights. I'm very pro LGBTQ people, but at that point in time, they weren't pro gun. They were pro staying alive, or they weren't anti gun. They were pro staying alive. If they came out, they were in mortal danger. And there was no anti-gun movement to speak of, even as far as
late 1800s.
Yeah, I was going to say 1900. That really the anti-gun movement didn't really come around until the gangster movies of the 1930s. That's when things started to go south. But yeah, I just the ridiculousness of that tweet. I just had to comment. John, what do you think, man?
I was going to pass it off to Rob first. Yeah, Paul, I want to back up your claim to a noted reference. Abraham Lincoln said, "Don't believe everything you read on the internet."
Yes,
I think he was right.
I would agree with
Nicholas
that.
needs to read that.
And in my case, I actually sent a copy of Ken's YouTube video to the Brunswick County, North Carolina NAACP, who had objected to a sanctuary in North Carolina, and specific in Brunswick County, which I found really sad. And I would also recommend a new book that's out called Wilmington's Lie. It is about how Wilmington, North Carolina, the Democrat white supremacists, the Klan, etc., used white supremacy, gun control, and an outright coup to overthrow a biracial local government in 1898. By 1900, there were no black elected officials. By 1919, we had the Pistol Purchase Permit Bill, which was introduced by the brother-in-law of the architect of white supremacy in North Carolina. And it just goes on and on and on.
John, I didn't know any of that. Thank you. Paul, I'm lucky to be on this podcast with people who are way smarter than me. I get taken to school. Thank you both.
Dude, I'm so people that are smarter than you, don't count me in there, because I
Just
that's why I just people on is there everybody
just
who's
say
smarter
amen
than
and
me.
say thank you, John.
Yeah. I do think that does do it for the news segment. We're going to step aside and break again. We've got our defensive gun use segment coming up, and the first one I find fascinating. It's another ex-spouse or behaving badly. You're going to want to stay in tune for that. We'll be back with that right after this.
Firearm Safety Institute is one of Northwest Illinois' premier firearm training companies. We provide superior firearm training to all levels of shooters. Gary Doherty has been a trainer and concealed weapons permit holder for many years. While living in Nevada, he carried legally and has the experience to train you to do the same. Firearms Safety Institute offers a wide range of courses designed to meet the personal needs of both seasoned shooters and those that are new to the world of firearms. If you are looking to apply for the Illinois Concealed Carry License, Firearms Safety Institute can provide you with a professional training that meets the state's requirements. Gary accommodates classes of all sizes and can provide individualized instruction if that is your personal preference. He's happy to work with you and your friends to arrange private classes and will come to your location and work around your schedule. If you would like to get your Illinois CCW or increase your firearm knowledge or skills, go to firearmsafetyinstitute.com to start the conversation. Mention the Polite Society podcast and receive a 10% discount on your training. Remember, that's firearmsafetyinstitute.com. Get your Illinois CCW today.
Hey, welcome back to the Defensive Gun Use segment of the Polite Society podcast, powered by the Firearms Policy Coalition. Now, These discussions are not legal advice. Some of us are trainers, but this is not formal training. And please, you need to get formal training. The defensive gun use segment is intended as information, not as training. As always, the opinions of the hosts are only their own opinions and not those of any sponsors or other affiliations, although they should be. Monty, we got first one up out of Ohio.
2 days after a wild shootout on a rural Greene County road, the man who fired the fatal shots said Wednesday had been a calm, normal morning until, quote, all of a sudden hell began, end quote. Lindsey Duncan and his wife arrived at their home in rural southwest Ohio community after going to Yellow Springs for coffee and breakfast. As they pulled into the driveway and stopped to get their mail, a man with a camouflage mask and hoodie approached the vehicle. This man was Duncan's ex-wife's new husband. He held a gun a foot from Molly Duncan's head. I thought it was a bad nightmare. I don't know what to do, Duncan said. Whatever happened after that was instinct. It wasn't me, it was instinct. Duncan said in 2 separate gun battles, bullets were flying inches past his wife's head. Duncan's ex-wife and her new husband had come to Ohio to confront Duncan about problems with a college fund for the former couple's 2 daughters. No issues were raised. They just pulled 2 handguns and started shooting. Molly Duncan called it an ambush. The ambush ended with both aggressors assuming Ohio temperature. Duncan and his ex-wife then were divorced in 2009. Greene County Sheriff's Office had dozens of entries in their logbooks for the address of the shooting, but most of them were alarm-related or drive-bys. Several entries in the sheriff's logbooks in 2015 and 16 listed the ex-wife as the complainant. A neighbor reported they were used to hearing gunfire related to hunting, but the shots they heard that day were not related to hunting or target shooting. She heard someone say, "Get on the ground and throw your gun down," then a lot of yelling and then silence. The homeowner has a concealed carry permit and is a bit of a celebrity. He is the owner of Genesis Weight Loss Companies and has made television appearances. The incident is listed as a justifiable homicide, but investigations continue, including the sealing of the deceased couple's North Carolina home while search warrants are being issued.
This sounds like a wake-up call for many of my students and friends who say, "Hey, Rob, let's go shooting." They have a dusty, unloaded gun up on a shelf, and they think they're armed for their own defense. They're not. A firearm is not a magic talisman. It's a tool. You need to learn how to use it. It needs to be within arm's reach. John, what do you tell your friends that you take to the range?
I'm just kind of going back to the couple who started it all, and they're worried about their daughters. Well, now they're dead. That what if? I mean, I have set up college funds for people, but I've never heard of anybody going to gunfire of a 529 plan. I'm just kind of bewildered.
I think this ex-wife was also some sort of done some stunt work. So, yeah, somebody. I'm going to resort to my usual comment. I would love to see the toxicology report.
I was just going to go there if you didn't.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's your thing, man. You're the one who usually does it. But if you didn't, I was going to pick up the torch for you, dude. All right, let's go ahead and move on to Norfolk, Virginia.
Shakir Holly had been charged with second-degree murder and gun crimes after gunning down another man on July 9th. Norfolk prosecutors determined he fired in self-defense and dropped the murder case against him. The other man tried to rob Holly at gunpoint, and the gun, quote, went off, end quote. During a struggle, Holly was able to disarm the thug. The suspect walked away, but soon returned with 2 people and another firearm. Holly had maintained possession of the first firearm, and a gunfight soon was on. Holly was shot 5 times in the abdomen, arms, and legs. Holly fled to a nearby apartment and banged on the door until a tenant let him in. The witness said he told them, quote, Shorty tried to kill me, end quote. Shorty was the nickname for a friend of his, or I guess you could say a former friend. The former friend died at the scene, as will usually happen when a bullet goes through your lungs and heart. In months since the shooting, Holly has made a complete recovery, though he had to use a colostomy bag while he recovered. The gun charges were for felon in possession of a gun, which was only the result of him picking up the firearm that had been used to attack him. The assailant was found at in the gun control memorial site. And go.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in first on this one, and I want to talk about the gun control memorial site. This is totally ridiculous. The people like this person, and I even don't want to use that term, person, but people like this person show up when they instigate crimes and die in the commission of those crimes. It's totally ridiculous. The other thing I want to bring up is and this is political. It's not self-defense or defensive gun use related. If somebody committed a felony, served their time, paid their debt to society, is out and rejoined society as a productive member of society, why are they not allowed to own a gun? That is absolutely ridiculous. They get the right to vote back in most states. They certainly never lose their right to free speech. All their other rights are restored. Why is their life not worth defending? Barry, what do you think?
Well, right, Paul. That's part of the question is, if they're still dangerous, too dangerous to own a gun, why are they letting them out of jail?
Amen.
Thank you.
And second of all, what kind of wacko prosecutor is charging this guy with a felon in possession of a gun? I mean, it's obviously it's a current law. All of us here don't agree with it. But what the heck is going on? He's charging him for felon in possession of a gun because he picked up the gun that was used to attack him?
And successfully used that gun in his own defense. Yeah.
Come on, Rob.
Well, okay, Gary, you've seen it all the time. These days, prosecutors will stack enough charges on that you cannot afford to defend yourself, and therefore you'll take a plea deal. That's exactly the same problem that Marcus Weldon faced, except Marcus's community rallied around him and did fight a number of made-up charges. Shakir Hawley stayed in the fight and saved his own life, even though he was shot 5 times. That's a lesson I can learn.
Oh, yeah.
Even as Rob pointed out, or I'm sorry, Paul has pointed out several times in the show, in South Dakota, if you write a bad check for $250, felon.
Yep.
You shouldn't have a gun? What the heck is that?
It does sound like something out of the 1890s, doesn't it?
It sounds stupid.
Fortunately, some courts have actually started to make a differentiation in restoring gun rights between violent felonies and non-violent. The
Right.
writing the bad check.
Why
Right,
did I
John,
have
but
it limited
should you
to
have to get
6?
a
That's
lawyer?
stupid.
And spend thousands of dollars to get your gun rights back because you wrote a bad check when you were 18 or 19 years old. You're stupid. Now you're 25. You got a family you want to protect. You got to spend thousands of dollars to be able to protect them.
Exactly.
Come on.
Okay, you have my vote, Gary.
Sherry won't let me run. She's afraid people will talk mean about me.
Like they
I
don't already.
talk mean about you all the time, man.
And I correct it. I'm standing up for you, Gary.
Thank you, Rob.
All right. That does wrap up our defensive gun use segment. We're going to go ahead and step aside to our final break. We'll talk about blog posts when we get back right after this.
In 1928, Germany required its citizens to register their firearms, making possible Hitler's 1938 Nazi Weapons Act, disarming all Jews. Now ask yourself, what is the real consequence of registration? All in favor of gun control, raise your right hand. Vote to you by Jews for the Preservation of Firearms Ownership, America's aggressive civil rights organization. JPFO.org.
All right, welcome back. This is the final segment of the Polite Society podcast, powered by the Firearms Policy Coalition. At this point, we used to start begging for emails, but I much prefer the live show. If you just come watch us live on Facebook, go search Facebook for Polite Society Podcast. Watch our live videos, comment as we are on the air. We'll get your comments on the air. If you do want to write us, you certainly can. The address for that is onair@politicsandguns.com. Rob, what's been going on over at Slow Facts this week, man?
Commented on Michael Bloomberg, Second Amendment sanctuary cities, and President Donald Trump. All that was tied up in one article. I noticed that 14 counties passed Second Amendment resolutions in 1 week. That article is titled Rapid Social Change from the Top Down and from the Bottom Up. My articles are up at Clash Daily, at AmmoLand, and at my blog, slowfacts.wordpress.com. And if I say so myself, this particular article is almost as good as the ones by John Richardson. Hey, John, argue with me later. Tell me what's new at your blog, No Lawyers, Only Guns and Money.
Well, continuing on about sanctuary cities
Yeah.
and counties, over 60 North Carolina counties, its last count I had was 63 or 64, have now passed Second Amendment sanctuary resolutions. We saw what was happening across the border in Virginia, and they've been fairly proactive. That said, some of the largest counties, even those with a Republican majority, have not taken the issue up. This seems much more of in North Carolina, at least, as an urban-rural split than a Democrat-Republican split. About 75% of Democratic county commissioners statewide have voted in favor of Second Amendment sanctuaries. That and more is at onlygunsandmoney.com.
All right. I want to, before we take off and shut the show down, I want to recommend you go to Facebook. For those of you that do have Facebook, search for Polite Society Podcast listeners. We get more listeners in there every week. It's a great area where listeners to the show can talk. They share news stories, and it's just I've been there not as much as I should be, but I've been there a lot recently, and just check it out. If you feel free to join, and we'll hang out there. That does wrap up another episode of the Polite Society Podcast. I'd like to thank Rhonda Azell for joining us today. So for Amy, Tracy, Belle, Kat, Dana, Gary, John, Rachel, Susan, Monty, and Rob,
Until next time.
Stay safe. Be aware.
And we'll see you down the road.
The views and opinions on the show you just heard are those of the host and the guest and are not necessarily the views of any sponsors or other affiliations. But hey, not everyone is as smart as we are.
All right, let's see if anybody's not here. Thanks. What I really want is just some heat. I'm sitting underneath the 2 blankets. I'm feeling like I either have like some elastic band around my guts, or I'm wading through like pudding or something like a really uncomfortable pressure. everywhere below my ribs, and it's driving me nuts, and it's really difficult. Now, if I shot 9mm all the time, I'd be dry heaving right now. If I had no constitution. All right, well, let's see if maybe I can find a riding shotgun with Charlie. I'm working, so I don't have a problem leaving it running. There's only 7 people watching, so if you're watching me draw here, that's fine. Well, I guess I'm done drawing. I'm setting up Chicago Guns Matter on Midnight EST. I guess I could just go to music. Oh, no, it's trying to find my own video. So, there.
Right, for our first big project of 2020, we're going to do our second Clash Patch Batch.
All right. Let's see who's got it here. Ryan Harris. I don't know who that is. Beat the Pressers. I don't know who that is. Mark Sheen. I don't know who that is. Mike Sedini. I could talk to him. I'm trying to find this one already. I think I did. Oh, Andrew Gottlieb and Richard Richardson. Let's listen to this one. This will be interesting. This is 42 minutes, so I don't know if we'll be going for 42 minutes, but
Riding shotgun refers to the practice of sitting next to the driver in a moving vehicle. The term riding shotgun came around after the time of the stagecoach, when somebody used to sit next to the driver holding a shotgun in case they ran into bandits. My name is Charlie Cook, and I drive a lot. I like to talk to people while I'm driving, so I interview people in my car while I'm driving. Welcome to Riding Shotgun.
this was in Phoenix, January 28th, 2020.
I want to remind you that you should go to asphaliadesigns.com. It's ASFALEIA designs.com. Enter your name and email address for the drawing that they're going to have for the fans of the Riding Shotgun Charlie show. You can also save 10% if you make a purchase and you put in discount code RSWC. Asphaliate Designs, enter your name info. The drawing is going to be on January 28th, 2020. So you want to make sure and tune in and make sure you check that out. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this episode of Riding Shotgun with Charlie. This is one of the episodes that we are doing in Phoenix, Arizona at the Gun Rights Policy Conference 2019. Today, I have a guest and a
Before it said that it was 2020.
Or do I say a passenger and a tag along? And a hitchhiker? The hitchhiker sounds good. I don't know if that's we have so of all the things I do, we're adding an Uber to what I'm doing. So first of all, we've got John. Our passenger is going to be John Richardson. This is radio, not TV. John Richardson from No Lawyers, Only Guns and Money. A little takeoff of the Warren Zevon too. He's also from the Flight Society podcast. And our hanger on in the back is Andrew Gottlieb from the Second Amendment Foundation. It's a man of few words. All right, we are, the reason that Andrew is with us is we are getting him to the airport. John is going to be our navigator, and I used to be a driver. We're going to talk about John and all this stuff.
As he's working on holsters for everybody. They're all getting matching holsters or something now.
Take a right. Take a right. I could plug this into the take a right across the bridge, and then we will
Where are they going?
go down the left. That's a big intersection, right? So I haven't been pulled over. Not done, but so John's navigating for us for different entries to the airport. We have John Richardson. John, tell us about yourself. Well, I live in Western North Carolina. Yes. I'm married. I have 2 grandmothers. I did it the right way. I got married, and a few years later, I got 2 granddaughters. Didn't have the kids in the interview. I have stepdaughters. What part of Carolina is well? 17 South. 17 South. All right. So you're a blogger. You are a blogger. And you've got a blog that was taken down a while ago, but we're not going to get to that. What's your how did you become a gun guy? Well, I guess the first gun I bought was right when I was 18. I bought a Ruger 1022. Nice. And a assault weapon in Washington D.C. But that's a Washington State, right? It was $55 brand new. It's a lot of work. Well, no, this is but that's okay. That's okay. I really did not grow up in a gun owner, but my dad was kind of interested. Yeah, parents are separated, but he was the Army. We didn't have guns at home. To be honest, I was a little gun shop. The loud noises bothered me. Somehow I got a friend from Boy Scouts, and we ended up going shooting, and it became more frequent, and so then I had a Ruger 1022, and then eventually I got a shotgun that was given to me by my dad, which I still have. And then, college, you kind of drift, you get into more liberal, sure, but I never really got into gun control. Went through a period where I had to sell some guns and I need to live on, sure, and 10 years ago, maybe a little bit more, I started getting back into it, and I remember I said, oh, they're banning assault weapons. I want one. Right. So I went to actually a department store that also had a gun counter. It's called Roses, and I bought a Daewoo DR200. It had the thumbnail stock, no flash suppressor. I think it came with a 10-round magazine, and I bought some 30-round GI old crummy magazines for like $5 each at a gun show. Those would probably go for about 70. Yeah, those would go for about $75 in Massachusetts today. Yeah, these are old ones. These are pre-banned. And along the way, I got.
Can you hear the podcast okay?
It was the history that interested me. Yeah, and it was just a little past the point of curios and belts where you still get some darn good vibes.
Aye.
That were just dumped. I bought 3 finished most of the guns for $88. 3 for $88. 3 for $88. Wow. And they can ship right to you with your that's right. The big ground truck would show up and have a couple long boxes, and there I'd be. Christmas in Carolina. No, the first thing I actually did buy was a Swedish Mauser.
That's nothing too bad there.
M30. It was a Husqvarna, the motorcycles and chainsaws. Yeah, and this was, it wasn't as long as the earlier rifles, it was shorter. It's, and they never used coarse ammo. The streets had never used
Brazil, or maybe something from Chile. Oh, the Swiss rifles are looking pretty good right now. Prices are good too. Just add that over to 3 or 4. $85. Okay, $85 can't be great. Yeah. All of a sudden you're now a collector. I'm a collector. That's cool. What kind of shooting did you take these guns out and shoot them, or just you wanted to hang on to them? Some I shot, some most of the time. I never even bought the ammo for it. But it's the history of shooting, doing research about why the Swedish Army had this rifle, why they finally went to semi-automatic, or why did the Chileans have this rifle made in Germany?
Thanks.
The history, it was living history. The rifle was history. They were real weapons of war.
All right, before we get to weapons of war, we still had 17.
Internal 10.
It could go either way.
Um,
17 and 10 split, and then they go right back together right at the airport. So they could have gone either way.
is my grandfather's World War II German house
I can't even hardly hear it.
was missing a bolt.
I keep getting water come out of my ears too. That seems kind of weird. Maybe I have that coronavirus. I don't drink Corona. I don't drink any beer.
My grandfather took the bolt out and put the bolt someplace. So when I acquired it, it had been sitting in my sister's closet. The basement had some water damage to it. Whatever, it's in horrible shape. But I'm happy to take it. I went to a gun show, found a bolt for it, took it to a gunsmith because I wanted to shoot it. It's a 7mm Mauser. And the guy's trying to say, this is like, if you shoot this, it's going to blow up. You don't have a gun. You have a piece of wood, you have a piece of metal. Don't even turn it into a lamp. And there's a button back program that is $25 for it. That's my grandpa's. So it is going in the closet. That's where it lives.
Well, I've got my cousin actually has it now. One of them was in the 18th War Pacific, and he came back with a Japanese Arisaka that we would play around with as kids. And supposedly it did have a firing pin, and so it was legal in New York City. And then there was a Roman Glock 22 bar, which was looked like you almost had 2 hammers. There was no ammo, but they were in a closet up in the attic. Creepy kids.
Kids. That's a good way to put it, right? Yeah. That's cool. So how did things progress? Did you become an instructor or anything like that? Did you reach that interest in the history?
Not until later.
Not until later, okay. What made you get to the point where you wanted to be an instructor and share this with other people?
Well, it was about
What the hell? I thought I saw it as soon as I opened this.
class, 3.5. An instructor,
There it is.
basically just an instructor class that was going to be in our area and already certified.
All right. So instead of just using this GIF, I'm going to go.
All right, we're going to before that. How long have you had your blog?
Oh, okay.
I started my blog in 2010.
Okay, so the blog is before being an instructor.
And I've been reading lots of blogs, and I just got back from the NRA annual meeting and said,
That's nice of you. Are they paying you, or are you just doing it?
first time, and I started looking and said, how do you do this? It doesn't
All right. So I'm going to open up another one.
level of the arts degree.
It also means you can serve fries, but
That's right. And so it basically evolved. I got set up. I think I had 19 hits my first month. And then
I think
I
that's
had
in here.
about the first post Donald versus Chicago case, which was Bateman versus Purdue, which was in North Carolina. And I think I was the first person to blog about it. I think even before SAF had announced it, somehow it was on their website. I saw it, and And then I got started to notice. First of all, yes, that's the one. The airplane, just to get, yeah, shot in the dark. Shot in the dark. And I get picked up by a couple of other major bloggers, and they say, "Oh, John Richardson's doing this," and they linked to me, and it just took off.
Right there, this is one.
Probably in the first year and a half.
This is where I'm putting it.
They said, "Oh, I had 500,000 visitors."
500,000 visitors. Gun Channels in its prime had 1 million visitors a month, with everybody using Gun Channels. 1 million visitors, 500,000 visitors to a blog.
Get together and say, "So you're John Richardson?" I'm like, "Yes." Nothing that I saw. I mean, I did not start I did not do
Right on.
promotion. I was just putting my thoughts out there. I was trying to simplify a lot of legal stuff. Because that's an awful bit, of course, but it's a
That's Alan Gottlieb's kid Andrew speaking right now.
I went to GRBC for the first time in 2010 in San Francisco. They did like a week-long vacation. I remember seeing Miko Timsky. I thought it was hilarious because I saw Miko as some little Japanese lady, as opposed to some big Polish guy. We've always had it's always been that's pretty cool. After Bateman it's a fight. There were forces, shall we say, in Virginia that Bateman was about whether or not you could carry a gun outside the house during a declared state of emergency. So we would have snow. We have a hurricane in eastern North Carolina, 400 miles away.
Now I can save this as a ping.
If there is a state of emergency,
then I can put this here.
you want to be able to have the ability to
Now I can place that in here.
There were some battles. We won in district court in the state.
Now it's got a transparent background. And it's scalable.
Things that were the case. There was pressure from certain organizations. Let's just do a legislative fix and it'll be done. And now we really want the judicial decision to want precedent that can be built upon. It's a fight. It's funny too because it's such a simple issue. Police here on here on there. Yeah, I mean, certainly we talk about this one. And the judge said, "He's right. It's a violation of the Second Amendment. When people are the most vulnerable, they protect themselves."
That's weird.
So, and then it just kept evolving and evolving. And somewhere along the way, I got invited to be on an episode of Black Society podcast. By the next week, I was a regular co-host.
It was that fast.
It was that fast.
Wow. Yes.
There's nothing you can do wrong at Phoenix Airport. There's only one road in and one road out.
All right.
right. All right, we'll drop you off right here. That's cool. This is what it's about.
What's the history of that? I mean, I was ASU.
Yeah.
I agree. She's almost one of the most useless. It's up there. It's up there.
I have a poli-sci degree.
So you get.
I went to graduate school in political science. I left with a wife and no degree.
So you were saying it was useless. He doesn't graduate. He gets a what? I feel like this moment here. I went to college to be a band teacher, for God's sake.
You still there, right?
But it's my other
Still
the other half of my degree was in American literature. I like it. It's fun. And it's funny too, especially when you look at people like Spence and others.
What did you say?
I tell people in classes, I say, so
There's over 2 years in history. A lot has happened in a long time, and it's funny too, especially when you look at people talk about the Spits and ARs. It happened a lot faster than
I tell people in classes, I say, so we all
I don't know what that means.
to ban the semi-autos because it's cooler and sexier. I said, but the technology's been around since the late 1800s.
It's crazy.
Absolutely. It just wasn't an issue until recently. Right. All right, listen, thank you so much. Andrew's got to go. We had to drop him off. I have to say a special thank you to Andrew. Andrew was instrumental in getting me to be the blogger of the year.
The Ray Carter blogger.
The Ray Carter blogger of the year, which is the title you hold.
I was the 1917 year, the 2017.
Here's what I love. Blogger of the year, didn't write a word. That's long. It's a long.
But you have this is an extra double award winning show.
Yeah,
It's a double award winning.
a double award-winning show. I know. I'm honored to say that I have an award-winning show.
All right. American Society.
And I got the Defender of Liberty Award.
And you were as surprised as I was.
I was.
Don't tell anyone.
Yeah, you don't tell anyone.
Oh shit, bro, please.
Yeah, I wasn't even quite paying attention to what Ellen was saying, and
Oh,
and
it's
then
the
I
right place.
totally
It's this
went,
one.
oh my god, what did he call my name? Did I leave my
Just need
car
some
parked or something? Right. Crazy.
Blinkers on.
My blinkers on? Oh, the lights, those blinking?
And the party's playing. So we're calling you to the stage.
Oh, right. My blinkers on now? I don't know. Anyway, you're very welcome for the ride. Thank you for
Hiding the back.
you can't hide the back from your pop up and down.
I can't get out of it.
That's how I roll. That's how I roll. Andrew, thank you very
Good.
much. Safe travels back to Seattle. Is that where you're heading back to?
Unfortunately, yes.
I'll pump that for you.
Unfortunately, yes.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much, man. It's a pleasure.
Good to see you. Next year in Orlando.
Next year in Orlando, we will be there. Gun Rights Policy Conference in Orlando, 2020. Bam. All right, so we were just
gotta
talking
try
about
to
how
fake this.
one time you were a guest on the Polite Society podcast, and then you were a regular.
And I was a regular,
Just like that.
just like
Print
that.
screen.
And
So how long has it been since you've been on the show?
A little bit bigger, but it isn't that much bigger.
2014?
Now I
2014,
scroll
so
into
about
that.
about 5 years.
Very cool.
I mean, we're over our 500th episode.
Print screen.
Somewhere around
Scrolling.
episode, somewhere between 215 and 230.
So you've been on the show for a long time. The Polite Society podcast, you guys do.
So now he's just talking to John Richardson.
We do.
Yeah.
And we try to keep it limited to 15 to 20 minute segments at the most.
Oh.
And the reason we do that is somewhere along the way, somebody had told us that the average commute is 15 minutes,
Right.
so that if you like to and from work every a segment.
Now it's going on. I will tell you this. Sometimes when I see shows that are too long, I don't listen to them. And I know mine can be in that category as well. But now that but when you say the 15, when you keep 15-minute segments, I've heard a lot of people say, oh, you should cut your show down to 15 or 20 minutes because that's how long it should be. Talk to the podcast brothers in their bed, as long as people drive. Dude, I feel better than everyone else because I drive an hour. Yeah, one way, on short days.
That didn't work.
But, you put out a weekly show.
It looks like shit.
Yeah, and then you get the 15-minute segments.
We start off with what we're doing. Personal news, go into 2 or 3.
Oh, we got into the safety corner.
Absolutely, it's almost like the referee zone.
Not anymore.
Good.
Sorry. Everyone's got their segments.
And we did the 2 or 3 segments. Greg Gallagher pretty much does the line for that.
Yeah.
He is our trained immunologist. He's a scientist. Science stuff.
Science. Perfect. That's good enough for me.
And he's got a PhD from University of Glasgow. Smart guy. But then, we'll use in one, maybe 2 interviews. We've had some cool
No.
people like you wouldn't believe podcasts.
6 color. No. 3 color.
Where's some interviews that you had up, John?
I think one of the most recent things I had was a guy who calls himself a Parkinson's sugar.
Shaky Dave. Shaky Dave was on my show.
Shaky Dave. And you see Shaky Dave walking along, and he's shaking. But, and and I have seen people who have seen him shoot. The moment he has a gun in his hands, not even shooting, but he has a gun in his hands, he is just steady. It releases chemicals in his brain that just calm his system down.
Honestly, it's pretty amazing. I interviewed him in DC, but I saw him on another show where he had the shakes bad. The company that made the rifle for him, F1, they brought him in some cool, I don't know, Creedmoor rifle or something. I'm not much of a rifle guy, but they brought him some big rifle. And it's on shakes are gone. Like, you've got to be kidding me. You've got to be kidding me. Unbelievable. So, yeah, keep doing the shaking Dave.
And so he was memorable, and he was fairly recent. We've had Stephen Halbrook, we've had John Lott, we've had you. We've had you. We've had Alan Gottlieb. We've had. If people have done something one way or another, they end up on our show quite often. I think we've missed downtown.
Yeah, I don't see Face anymore.
I kind of do in the rearview mirror, though.
Right.
I'm not doing my job right.
Alright. So you guys have had everybody. You've had Masaki on there, you've had Diaz on there.
Yep.
John Bond, John Gottlieb.
Absolutely. And then we just, it's the key thing is you just have to ask people, and sometimes we have to record. Sometimes you just have to ask people. Sometimes they can't do it right then. Sometimes we have our schedule. There's no dash, but usually what we can do is say. So you might record that segment separately, and then splice it in. It's the beauty of podcasting. So it all sounds wonderful.
ums and the ahs, what do I say?
Hmm.
And as long as you don't say anything, the software does it for you.
Nice.
Unfortunately, I'm not the investigator.
Yeah, that's. So I might be a little bit lazy. All right. Flight Study podcast stuff. You guys have a cast approved. Like, yeah, a cast approved.
We have added a number of people.
Yeah, and that's.
We decided Rachel Malone, who's now the Texas State Representative for GOA, had been pretty occupied with her job. And then before that, she was the operations manager for the Texas Republican Party until she ran afoul of the governor by saying, I disagree. You want my flag laws. And they fired her. Wow. And within the month, she ran her job and said, I like this girl.
Yeah, she's pretty awesome.
She is absolutely awesome.
She is.
And so we started saying, you can interview some people, and we had some suggestions, and a casting call up. But Amy Dillon, Tracy Fronberg, Don McCormick, who works with Firearms Academy of Seattle. And lately, we've just added Kat, and my mind went blank because again, that's last name.
Yeah. Here, you take the wheel.
Facebook's just Kat Hell.
Cat Hell, that's how I know about Cat Hell.
Cat Ainsworth.
And she has brought energy to the show. All the women, I'm going to say, all the women on the show will be able to outshoot me any day, anytime.
Why do you think this is? I have my ideas. What do you think?
Because they're phenomenal trainers. And they've taken their all. Amy was a Marine Corps drill sergeant at Marksmanship instructor and a competitor. Tracy Bromberg works with Carl Ray, and she is a Messiah Youth Group certified instructor. Rachel was, or is. Don McCormick works with Firearms Academy of Seattle, and for all the shots. And they could put, I don't know if Tracy competes, but I know
She hunts. She's like, shows pictures of her.
well, she's a native Texan. She grew up going to her grandfather's ranch and going out shooting. That's cool.
I have much of the reason why they went to go shooting guys.
Just listen.
Yes, they pay attention to directions. It's simple.
I am confident enough in my best.
Because they listen to dudes.
Stop and ask for directions.
Yeah, you're up here, dude.
I had last year in Chicago, this year in DC, I had a fun moment with Aaron Millett, who has been on the show.
There's Rachel. They've just been talking about.
And we were trying to find out where the evening festivities were happening. And Aaron says, why don't we stop and ask for directions? I said, guys, don't ask for directions. If you want to ask for directions, go ahead. I'm not. It was funny. I didn't tell him. That was fun. But yeah, I think women are better shooters because they listen to directions.
They didn't bring all the baggage like, oh, I'm a guy.
Oh my God, right? We watched John Wick's training.
Sometimes they came into it later in life where they were more mature to begin with.
That can be too.
As well. They picked it up for self-protection more than anything else. That's a good one. They made it with the use of spouse. It's one of those things that's just, it's a shame. An utter shame.
Really is. It's rather interesting that there are a lot of people that say, around the house, if there's an abusive relationship, a husband beats the wife, around the house is more likely for the woman to get shot. But then there's no possibility for her to be able to protect yourself. And isn't that what we really want to do?
Yeah, look at myself. I'm 60-ish. We'll just leave it at that.
60-ish, huh?
I would not
62.
Oh, 62. When is this made?
I'm short, I'm
2019.
slow, I'm a little bit overweight. I have asthma, which is usually well controlled. I can't outrun some young guy or a bunch of young guys. It's not that I want to make my day. I just want to survive. Where's that?
Yeah, that's what it comes down to. You want to protect yourself, survive, whether it's you, whether domestic
When you
violence,
say 62,
relationship, or situation.
1958.
I say in my gun classes, I say this. I might wear tights, but I'm not a superhero. So I carry these tools to protect myself and my kids, and that's it. We only have a few minutes left before we get back to the hotel.
Oh shit, I am down as 1970. I can't tell ages for shit.
You got some stories that you read. You guys also have the DGUs.
This is John, the guy we're listening to right now.
3, 6, 7 defensive gun uses. We see what people did.
Blogger of the Year award he was talking about.
TV, public report. What you did right, what they did right. Remember, people pick up cops. You don't have to detain the person.
Yeah.
Your goal is just to save your life and leave it at that. But you don't have to.
Oh, I don't have him in here. I have him in podcast. He's not really an activist. He just talks about shit. So he's old as Ken Blanchard. Holy shit. That's old as fuck.
We try to answer questions. On more side, if we have some blog posts we want to point out, we'll do that.
Okay.
It's a good show. I enjoy it. Thank you so much. You guys are very, unlike my show, you guys are very well structured.
And it has nothing to do with me.
I'll tell you this: the once or twice that I've
Yeah, John.
co-host, I never worked in Google Docs, and when I'm reading the sheet, the typing is going away, and other typing is coming up. I'm like, what's going on? I don't know. It's all one of our little tricks so we don't talk over one another. If you want to make a comment, you just type your name in. Right? Yeah, it's more structured. It's just you. Right, I'm completely unorganized. Is this what you're saying?
No, you're not having 5 or 6 people trying to get a word in edgewise.
Right, this is true. It's not a panel of people.
It's not a panel of people.
It is not. All right, listen, we are back at the hotel. How can people find you and all of your stuff?
Well, they get down. I'll go to the places on podcast first. Yes, that's just what we were talking about. It's available on iTunes.
Oh, it's been 40 minutes already.
If you type in the Light Society podcast.com, you can find it. It's so fun. And
Woo! Look at this. This guy's even crazier than I am. Oh, I can't show you that.
oh, it's a Tesla. Yeah.
I drove one a couple months ago with my son. And we took it for a test drive as he graduated high school. So let's go for a test drive in a Tesla.
Why not?
Right.
And then for my blog, you can find it now at onlygunsandmoney.com.
I totally forgot to bring that up. What a knucklehead. You had your First Amendment infringed on a couple months ago.
I did. Blogger, I got a Facebook message from Dave Morganson. What happened to your blog? It's not there. I'm like, oh my God. And I go, and then I go back to check my emails, and at 3 in the morning, it said, you have violated the terms of service. Regulate. Then I had to go look up what that meant. And then I had to try to find out how to contact Google. This is not easy. And
Google, my Google?
basically, and basically what I have been accused of is either selling or facilitating the sale of a regulated item, which could be a firearm, could be pharmaceuticals, could be supplements or anything like that.
Always back up, which I didn't do. So 9.5 years, it was just going to be deleted. At 30 days, it was my appeal, or it was going to be deleted.
It's with me. Last year, I had my external hard drive on after I uploaded all my videos from Chicago, and it felt like and it's not just those interviews; it was all the raw video of all the other shows, and it wasn't 9.5 years; it was 32, 35 shows or something. And I'm like, this is my whole legacy.
So immediately, virtually that morning, I went to GoDaddy. I bought my own domain name. I decided I was going to, thought about doing it, but I decided I was going to WordPress. I wanted nothing to do with Blogger. It sounds like this stuff was bad. It was way back when
Farther way back on the fingers, they go
Oh,
way
fuck.
back.
and tried to cut and paste all that. I had 5,400 posts, 10,000 comments, probably 3,000 photos. Long story short, 2 days later they said, "Oh, we reevaluated it, and we've had a huge look at it. You didn't find any terms of service." Thanks to Bill Shaka's Firearms Chat podcast, he put me together with his host company, and I'm now going to be able to pay major hosting services. So I guess I'm glad it's two-way friendly.
A little bit of freedom there, which is cool.
Freedom.
Yeah, guntube.org is two-way friendly.
Talk about it, GRPC. It's often a win. We are at their mercy.
Oh my god.
All right, listen.
I'm not at anybody's fucking whim, and we're not at anybody's fucking mercy. You're at the mercy of who you fucking allow you to be at the mercy of.
Check out John Richardson and the other crew on the Polite Society podcast. We're going to put links to all that stuff. Check out, share, like, subscribe. All of the Writing Shotgun with Charlie stuff on YouTube, on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, on iHeartRadio. We are trying to get the Stagecoach across America. Also, check out SDRN.us, the Self-Defense Radio Network, because it is
Polite Society podcast.
it is all of your pro freedom podcasts in one place.
See, I don't do that stuff as well.
It's taken me 50 episodes to remember all of your pro freedom podcasts. Because at first it was all your pro gun podcasts. All your pro freedom podcasts. Awesome. John, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Charlie.
We'll put descriptions in this. We're going to share with all of your people, all your stuff with all my people.
My people talk to your people.
Right. Send a message in the chat. Ping me. I don't know when people say ping, I'm like, is that BlackBerry talk?
Me.
Yeah.
You have one.
When I hear, no, you never know.
No.
All right, listen, we'll see you guys next time. Thanks.
That's interesting. Learn about stuff that way by listening to podcasts. So now, I guess I can go do. KD, listen to Kevin, or whoever the hell Mark Sheen is. 2 minutes. I gotta listen to this one because I don't know enough about her. This is Laura Smith.
Riding shotgun refers to the practice of sitting next to the driver in a moving vehicle. The term riding shotgun came around after the time of the stagecoach, when somebody used to sit next to the driver holding a shotgun.
It's so cold here. Holy fuck, is it cold?
My name is Charlie Cook, and I drive a lot. I like to talk to people while I'm driving, so I interview people in my car while I'm driving. Welcome to Riding Shotgun with Charlie.
This is Laura Smith from the Liberal Gun Club.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this episode of Riding Shotgun with Charlie. Today I have with me, do I have to use her last name? No. Today I have with me Laura Smith from the Liberal Gun Club. Laura, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
I'm excited for this. I have
Yeah.
press will come out.
They haven't had it out.
All right, so we're in Phoenix, Arizona for the Gun Rights Policy Conference, and we're doing an interview on a Sunday morning. Sunday morning interviews require getting some food. So we're going to go to Starbucks. Starbucks. Oh, that doesn't sound good.
That does not sound good. We're gonna go up there and we're gonna take a left.
We're going to take a left on something.
But that one should go right. That sounds fun. No, just go that one. Yeah, I can go that one.
We got time. All right. All right, Laura, tell us about yourself.
So
You're a local gun owner.
I am a
Oh
local
my
gun
gosh,
owner.
like a zebra.
I mean, not only am I a liberal gun owner, but I'm the national spokesperson for the Liberal Gun Club. So, like, I am the liberal gun owner.
Like capital T.
Yeah, no, it is kind of funny. But our group, we're
That's awesome. How did you, so you've been anti-gun? Anti-gun or just non?
No, I was anti-gun. So I did not know. I grew up on liberal armed forces.
Working centers?
No, not really liberal. Like the liberal elite. I'm liberal elite. I'm an attorney. And
Wow, you're right on the checklist.
oh yeah, no, I do. Like, mom went to Harvard, the whole deal.
Oh my God.
I would say I'm really like, yeah, you know. And I did grow up with guns in the house. That was not part of the culture. And then I married a Marine. So I'm also a Marine. So we're done now. But so we actually go right at the light. So so my husband's had guns from forever. Always shot. Shooter, most to go, and would argue with him. You don't know what you're doing. That's not why you do this. And he finally got to me by and I think says says, hey, you don't actually know the facts of what you're talking about. You're going to take a left up here on the track. He says, you don't know the facts about what you're talking about. You know your arguments and know, like, you really care about this. Just go through and show you there's technical stuff you don't understand. Like, and you can keep your arguments on top of that, but learn the technicals so that your arguments are better. I'm a lawyer. I'm like, good to be educated. It's good to be educated.
Learn on the right one.
You know, all right, you're right. You know, and for those of you who don't know, you have a lawyer for a spouse, you're right. It's very
It's hard to admit you're wrong.
yeah, it's hard to
Right, all of a sudden you're like the font, like,
yeah, so thank you. You were right. And so I went and I was like, you're not teaching me. And for those who don't know, I'm also now like an instructor, and for those who don't know, your spouse wants to get teach them.
Because all of this stuff from home comes up at the range.
Comes to the range, and that's
Right.
not the place, and it comes out in weird ways, and it's really not the place for that to happen. And so I went and I found this amazing woman instructor at my range there, and I bought. So by the way, also never rented a gun. I started with my own. I said I'm not just I don't like. It's too weird. There's something weird about it. I want my own, and even if I don't like it, I can't like it. So I bought a Mark III. It's still my favorite gun, and I went to the range and it turned out I was good at it.
Very cool. Because women follow instructions.
Yeah, well,
And guys will like to watch John Wick movies and think they're driving.
apparently. But anyway, so like I turns out, and I'm sorry, I was on It sounds fun. Everybody talks about the self-defense and you're a woman lawyer, you know, and I have my business lawyer, like you should. Despite the fact that I live in a county that I 10 years. You know, but I was actually not one. I have worked on some cases where there's been death threats. Yeah, no, I had legit reasons, right? I was just being upfront about this. But I still, you know, was like, all right, nobody said it was fun, but shooting's fun. So, so shooting's fun. So I found out shooting was fun, and so then I got on a board that let's just say it's one of the assessments and went screaming for the hills and said, "Oh my God, there's got to be somebody."
Right.
It's not these people that take a break. Whoa. See why he's doing that? It actually says on the map there's a so we have crazy drivers at the office. So yeah, so I went running for the hills. I mean, like, and not conservative, but really, this is. You're not helping guys for those in the industry. It was one of those places, and I think I don't know if I Googled liberty guns or legal guns or non-traditional gun owners or something. Trying to find more on my drive.
Right, sure, something.
And a girl and a gun and the liberal gun club came out. And I emailed Robinson and all. He's like, I'm this little woman, and I just got into this, and I'm really just learning, and I don't know anything, because I'm
not feeling real good, so I'm working on some projects and listening to Riding Shotgun with Charlie, who's talking to Laura Smith, I think at the Gun Rights Policy Conference when it was in Phoenix last year.
So, Robin's awesome.
Robin is
awesome. She's a friend of mine now. I thank her immensely for this.
Robin is one of the biggest pastors.
Yeah, Robin is fantastic. And by the way, if you're a woman looking for an instructor, a girl and a gun has amazing instructors. I highly recommend them. So we
A Girl and a Gun was started in 2010 by Juliana Crowler.
And so I, you know, do that and like it has a drive-through. I said this is fun. The little gun club events and it's cool. And I say, hey, I'll volunteer for some stuff, and I volunteer, and suddenly I'm vice president of the California chapter, and then I'm the president of the California chapter, and then the LA Times calls for an interview, and they say, hey, will you be here for this interview?
Wow, the LA Times.
Yeah, the Sunday magazine, the LA Times wanted an interview. They were looking for California.
Who the fuck gives a shit about the LA Times?
And I did that interview, and then I think it was after Pulse. I actually don't remember if it was after Pulse or after Trump got elected. It was right in that. BBC somehow finds me on a Google search. Finds that interview on a Google search.
This is Robin. I mean Laura.
American gun owners about what's going on.
Gotcha. All right, this is on me.
I'd like a vintage chai, please. Hot, please.
Yeah, can I get a medium black coffee with 3 sugars? Yep. That is it.
Yes, please.
Thanks.
This is what gun owners do. We get, by the way, it's 7:10 in the morning. So, Charlie, so yeah, so I did this interview. So the BBC wanted online
A little online thing.
I being, far more naive than I should have been, says sure. And yeah, that was that. So circle now.
Bam! Now you're the internationally known Laura Smith, president.
I'm not president of Little Club. I'm the national spokesperson. We have an executive director also known as our very sparkly.
Right here in the sun with the feathers.
We to put this in context, another friend of ours named Erin Gillette.
I have had Erin in the car in Dallas. She is, I don't remember what episode, but you can get the range on them. Erin Gillette, ERINPALETTT.
And Erin is wonderful, and Erin is the executive director of operations business order and Pink Festivals.
Yeah, I know a lot of people that got
Erin and I
newspapers just for the coupons on weekends.
Erin and I were in the fashion show together, and she dared me to wear a tiara, and
that's how the tiara started.
So we wore tiaras at the ARPC. Fashion show.
Did you see she really, she had some right around on her arm? She should be on this first too.
Yeah.
All right.
My last tattoo was the Trump resistant tattoo, not in Vegas, actually.
Dude, you are hardcore.
I'm really hardcore.
Oh my god. All right, we're gonna get a U-turn to the sun.
Yeah.
No. Maggie always how we thought. Maggie, right here. Woo!
Yeah.
No, I've never been in an accident. Just for that.
That was it.
Okay, so the BBC stuff took off, and then what happened after that?
So what happened after that is this was all right around the time of the election, and I have to say, like, for it does make me happy to do it in a terrible way, because people on the left have got me, marginalized communities are
Maybe I need to shoot people in marginalized communities.
Yeah, people have said, maybe I need to learn to shoot these people who are in marginalized communities. Make sure that
So I'm thinking the same thing. I might need to shoot marginalized people. I don't know.
don't do that. That these people have really kind of gone self-defense.
I had this is pretty funny. I'm in Massachusetts. It's a very understanding. I meant to say this to have our gun owner meetings in the Prius because
So they blew off a discount to avoid. Yeah, thanks. I'm trying to put it all into perspective, right?
I've got the class that I want you to go to.
I've got the class for you. Yeah, and I think it's funny because I think it goes across the spectrum. But when I'm talking to people who are in the class, they're not worried about the Trump supporters. They're really worried about kind of the uptick. I think it's not so much Trump supporters. I don't think it's the politics because I just sat in a room with 1,000 supporters with a lot of yesterday. Like it's not that far. It's the uptick in tribalism, and they're worried about the people on the eastern coast who feel cold and by the uptick in tribalism. That's where you're starting to see.
Oh, please. They got to struggle for lame ass excuses why to be upset and offended. It's weak.
To have to need that. I sat at a party last night with the transfer, and they've been told one of whom captured the military on their ships, didn't want to I'm sure she'll be able to stay after 14 years of service. That's a real thing. That's a real concern. So that's the kind of stuff that we're seeing. You have people calling us and saying, I'm working on my safety.
Fake ass concern.
And I'm starting to get nothing.
All right, so this is what I know. So what do I do? To me, owning a gun means that you said, "Hey, I need to have the ability to take care of myself." Right? As far as sort of
I'm not
housing,
really to this point yet. I'm still using my notes, which is
I need to do this on my own.
does
It
this
seems to me that a lot of people
to see if I got everything even in here because I don't.
and that to me, that to me means like I want the government to take care of me, but I want to have a gun to take care
Would
of
you
me.
put Oath Keepers in here?
I guess I did.
Would you call Oath Keepers a Second Amendment organization? Because I don't.
But
That's why I don't have it.
that's what I don't get this. I don't get how. Yeah, that's what I don't get.
So totally fair, and I actually think this question is pretty often. So, I know. So, kind of just like I think people should, for a lot of reasons.
Sewage backup. That's never fun usually.
Okay, let's go.
I think you do have a section of the publication where like, no, this isn't about self-defense. I don't care. I do want to do competition or whatever. Or just winning. So you've got that. But then I think you've got this idea, right? And I think you do have this idea that the liberals want the government to take care of things. What
Don't act like they don't.
liberals, and by the way, we're the liberal Democratic Club, so I'm not speaking for. I am not speaking for a political party. And as a matter of fact,
Well, okay, that's a good clarification, I guess.
So I don't consider myself as a liberal for a reason, but for us, I think I think the thing that we see is that we really believe, or at least a group of us, I think that it's not that the government is supposed to take care of everything, but with the government, with society as a whole, and to me, even more especially capitalist society, the government is taking care of certain things that industry doesn't do well because it interferes with profit. That you actually live with more profit, you live with a better society.
No, you don't. You can't tell somebody else what the right thing to do is. Do the right fucking thing or shut up.
That is the single mom who works in a company that doesn't pay her a living wage for her two kids. I don't see the problem with it. It doesn't come there until you get to the wage of that. But also,
I want the fucking wage that fucking pays for heating this fucking house for free. Where's that fucking wage at?
I don't want a company that has to make a profit to be the one that shows up for their supplier. Okay, well, use the water limit, so for that. I don't want that. I don't want.
Where's that ever happened? It's fake ass.
And I think that our society works better when our government, our collective, that we've all created.
Fucking collective. Fucking collective.
We have that agreed upon collective is the one that says, okay, we're going to take care of certain basic things so that everyone does better. And I think the whole society works like that. And I think we see that, and I think that's what this one is. That we're not so much big government. I just as an aerospace. Talk about all the defense contractors. There's plenty of stuff that I see there that go. That's I'm right there with you on that, but there's stuff that I think government's good at, and I think what it should be good at is the taking care of people, so that everyone does. So that's me, but yeah, I've been in places where I think the family, kind of a funny thing about that is that I used to live very close to which is about as liberal as you can get. It's just we were talking about it earlier. On the liberal, I lived in those societies, and I've had friends who absolutely thought it was crazy back then. How could you do this? But also jokingly said, well, we're going to their house first because we know where the guns are when there's the earthquake. We know they're prepared.
them that. Then I turn around and say, listen, if you're not, if I'm saying whatever, food, items, clothes, whatever it is, water, I'm saying this for me and my family, not for you guys.
Yeah.
So you coming over, you're like all of a sudden it's the Walking Dead, and you want food.
Yeah, what are you bringing? What are you bringing to that?
Right. What exactly? What do you?
No, I mean, so there is kind of that kind of funny stuff. Like that definitely happens. But the other thing that I get to do, being and you know, if you guys look at my Facebook page, Charlie Wilson's friends on Facebook, people get all the different media stuff I do. I am completely out about I own these guns. There's pictures of me with them. I am very big on. We need to talk about this as fun, and we need to talk about this as normal. Gun ownership is a normal thing. Are the normal people, and so I am especially out there with, hey, I own a shotgun, shooting. Hey, here's my mark of my temper, you know, these are, and by the way, we're pretty nice. So, you know, I mean, I do, I have a Kemper Sapphire, I have my mark 3 is a barrel with this other one's pretty close line. I have a siren shotgun, like, you know, I have all this stuff. So, like, this is one of the things that I will talk to people. My ARs, you know, I will happily, like, I will talk to people that if you have questions about guns, you don't want to touch one that you don't want to, like, you are not the gun person, you are scared of them, which, by the way, is such a great thing. I'm happy to talk to you about it. I'm happy to say, you know, come on over, or let's go to the range and we'll have to check this out. I can teach you about it.
Yeah, hopefully everything went okay.
I'm happy to be that resource for people who say, I really don't understand what's going on. And so that's kind of the fun thing about it.
Cool. All right, here's the next one. I know we were on Sherwood before. We told that. Trying to retrace her stuff. I never, people accuse me of always being involved in this. And I'm like, no, let's just try it out. Let's go. And then at some points, I try to be conscious of it. And the sun is right on the camera. It's not that. So and then we can go through here right down there. So apparently the road is a dead end.
Turn here now.
Right, exactly. Right. Hey, there's the amusement park, which is not far. All right, so any more people this weekend, Mark? That is a cool way to go about it. What do you say? This is something I'm trying to get a lot.
Oh, John wrote this.
When you have to talk to someone that is instant, or new to
Instant something new to it.
okay.
New to it. Find the people that you trust.
I got it in there. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's really what it is.
yeah, you know,
Did I get it? Yeah.
you know, I love stories like this. I love to hear chocolate. You know, you know,
When after I get divorced, I went on a trip with my wife's buddy of mine, and lived out with him.
poor Charlie.
Yeah.
Poor Bob.
I'm like, yeah, so I went to go practice, and I got a foot operating thrower. When I'm out there, my kids are sitting in the car, so
my daughter. Business. And she's like, "Dad, I saw you shoot that one, but it didn't break until it hit the ground." Thanks, Ray. I love that positivity. So yeah, you like to shoot sport class.
I do. I love it. I think it's super fun. You know, find people that's your sport, go do that. You know, I like to go shoot. You know, go fun. I think you'll find that way. There's this industry is really welcoming. There's a whole bunch of different sports to do. And so go do that and don't try to sort of
Right.
for people who are antis, I think I try really hard to listen to what they're saying and not the words they're using. So I think it's really important for us. Yeah, and but I really mean it. Like, so what I mean by that is that I think a lot of people aren't anti-gun. They're anti-kids gun, and they have words that they hear over and over again. Shooter, murderer, mass shooting. They're told that these happen all the time. They're told that it might happen to their children, which, and they can never worry. You know, I mean, it's, and I hate to say it that way, but I have a 2-year-old in public school that literally can't be part of it. I am legitimately, I'm absolutely worried about something happening in this school. I just don't think banning the guns is the solution because I don't think it's going to work. And so what I talk about there is I bring back I'm a mom. I'm worried about that. Let's talk about what we're worried about. Let's be posted. It's okay to be afraid of that. It's okay to be afraid. It's normal to be worried when you're in a threatened situation. So let's talk about what might actually help. What can we do? You know, I don't think banning the guns is going to work because there's, you know, however many millions, the estimates on ARs is somewhere between 8 and 28 million in the US. And I think that millions probably is you know, and maybe more. And I think it's the, you know, how. You know, I don't think that's a real answer. And so if that's not the real answer, what is the answer? I want to talk about it. What would make you feel good?
High Lane Road, nice big fat U-turn, baby.
Woo! Nice. Yeah, it's
I
cool.
know,
Oh,
right? You guys are hotels around. I almost want to meet you. We're gonna wrap things up.
awesome.
How can people find you and the Weekend Gun Club and all this stuff?
We're on Facebook and it's looking for me. We have a website. We have a lot of content. We have out www.theliberalnetwork.com. We have internet forums on there. We have participate to some level as a non-paid. Premium content and it's cheaper than it's
Very cool.
you know, come check us out. You can look at my Facebook page on there, Smith. You know, come check us out and come and everybody can. I'm Lerma@liberalnetwork.com. That's my email. You can email me. Pretty easy to find online. You can message me. There's Facebook. Or talk to me. Crazy. You know, like I'm on this all the time. I'm not bringing in people. I talk about I want to bring more people into the world and, you know, reaching out to Charlie. It's not that I was
Right, I'm middle-aged, I'm white, I'm overweight, I'm not a detective.
yeah, like Charlie, I'm not Charlie, but we have that. For people, and so that's what I want to talk to you about. How do I bring this person? I am happy. You know,
All right, very cool. So, one more minute for us. Oh, you want to just
I do have a blue AR. No, I have a blue AR. Yeah. I do, which I love.
you can't hear all that stuff.
I
band. This is what I want to know because we have a band and then another band. And then...
Okay, so California, we have ARs. We have all those magazines that you guys couldn't buy for a weekend. But we can have them now as long as we want them now. So we could have magazines, but we can have ARs. We have different magazines. Says the guy from Massachusetts. Man, come on. We could have ARs before. Now you can't buy them in certain configurations. But it is where they just have funky grips on them. You know, you can't. No, you can have a detachable magazine. You just, as long as you don't have them on furniture, you can't have an adjustable stop. You can't have a wraparound grip that drops below the trigger guard. You can't have a flash suppressor, but you can have almost everything. Yeah.
A wraparound grip that goes below the trigger guard.
Yeah. Yeah, there's all kinds of funky definitions. So needless to say, we have all these fabulous like paddle grips and cool like no stops that make it much more comfortable than all the sizes. And a lot of people just put in their stocks. Yeah, and you know, solder on them, whatever they have.
Flash riders are not good. Okay, flash riders are not good, but most of them are good.
Yes. So now my AR does not have a flash version on it, but it's not.
There we go.
So, yeah. So yeah, this is the whole gun ban. So, but I kept mine in its original configuration. Might as well, like I'm the first one. Yeah.
All right, listen, thank you for being on.
Thank you.
We got all your stuff. I'm going to put links for all your stuff. I'll put that in there in the show description. Listen, thank you guys for watching Riding Shotgun with Charlie. You can like and share and subscribe. Share it with all your people because we are trying to get the stagecoach across America. Riding Shotgun you can find on YouTube, but you can find you can watch it. You can listen on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, and on iHeartRadio. And do not forget to check out the Self-Defense Radio Network, sdrn.us. It is all of your pro-freedom podcasts in one place. Laura, thank you so much for being on the show. Look forward to seeing you at this next year. Look forward to seeing you online. And hopefully we can find some people that are of your ilk that want to become gun owners. You need to check out Laura at the
Love to have you guys reach out and talk. I'm happy to answer questions and do what I can.
Awesome. All right, we'll see you guys next time.
Primaries are actually four. They serve a purpose. One of the things they do is they serve.
So, what did I do? I closed out of Charlie's thing. All right, with that, we've been going for 2 hours. I don't know if anybody's even out there anymore. Is anybody even out there anymore? There's just a bunch of people falling asleep. That does not look like Katie. I'm not good at doing people that I know. That's not right. Yeah, there hasn't been much going on, but like I say, I've been feeling a little bit better right now, actually. I was spinning earlier. That does not look like Katie. Oh shit, did that do it? It's gonna be something like that. Hmm. All right. Well, audio too low. Yeah, there's no audio on right now. So with that, though, I think I'm gonna wrap it up. So thanks everybody for showing up, and we'll have Free Patch Friday tomorrow at the store. Gonna draw guns tomorrow if everything works out, and hopefully we get it warmed up in here. Hopefully it's sleep. I might go sleep in the van. Put the heater on in the van and sleep in there. So tomorrow I might be doing a marathon drawing thing. Gotta raise some funds, so we'll be back at it. Thanks for tuning in. Be back up later.